Beneath the hills of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, there is a passageway through solid rock. Two tubes, bored side by side through the belly of Mount Washington, each one carved by the hands of workers who drilled and blasted through unyielding stone, foot by stubborn foot. When they opened in January of 1924, they were the longest automobile tunnels in the country, built exclusively for the motor car. But the story of the Liberty Tunnels is not simply a story about concrete and stone. It is a story about a city's ambition, about the extraordinary labor required to bend geography to human will, and about a dangerous lesson written in exhaust fumes and unconscious bodies. A lesson that arrived just months after the ribbon was cut. Pittsburgh in the early 20th century was a city of tremendous, almost violent energy. The steel mills ran night and day. The rivers, the Allegheny, the Monongahela, the Ohio, moved coal and iron and commerce in every direction. The city was growing outward as well as upward, and the South Hills neighborhoods, nestled behind the great ridge of Mount Washington, were filling with families. Workers and merchants and professionals wanted to live there, in those quieter streets above the industrial roar. But Mount Washington stood between the South Hills and downtown Pittsburgh like a wall of ancient stone. To reach the city, you navigated around it or over it, climbing steep inclines that were remarkable feats of their own kind but slow and limited in capacity. The journey was grinding, inefficient. The city needed something more. It needed a shortcut through the mountain itself. Engineers and city planners debated solutions for years before a single shovel broke ground. One proposal, put forward by an engineer named W.M. Donnelly, called for a deep open cut straight through the ridge. Not a tunnel at all, but a trench carved from the living rock, open to the sky. It would eliminate the engineering complexity of a closed bore, but the idea was rejected, likely for the disruption it would cause to the neighborhoods above, and the scale of the excavation required. Other voices pushed for tunnels in a district called Shalerville, a location that would eventually, decades later in 1959, become home to the Fort Pitt tunnels. Still others imagined a route threading through a valley behind Mount Washington toward the communities of Dormont and Mount Lebanon, emerging near a place called Sawmill Run. This vision was known as the Bell Tavern Plan, and it had real merit. It would serve the communities of the lower South Hills directly, but the final design drew from the Bell Tavern route and then departed from it in one critical way. It followed a higher line through the mountain and emerged on the north face of Mount Washington, facing the Monongahela River. That shift in elevation solved one geographic problem, but created another. The northern portal now sat above the river, with no way across. A new bridge would have to be built. That bridge would become the Liberty Bridge, a companion structure to the tunnels, conceived and designed as the second half of a single corridor of movement. You could not have one without the other. The man who carried both projects forward was Amos D. Neeld, the engineer who designed the tunnels, and would go on to supervise construction of the bridge as well. His design for the tunnels called for two separate bores, each shaped in a vertical wall horseshoe profile, wide at the base, arching overhead. Each tube would carry 2 lanes of automobile traffic and include a 4-foot pedestrian sidewalk along one side. It was a design suited to the realities of a city in motion, built for the automobile age that was arriving fast. The construction contract was awarded in January of 1999 to a firm called Booth & Flynn Ltd., one of the region's most capable construction companies. Workers descended on Mount Washington from both ends, drilling into the rock face, setting charges, blasting forward inch by inch. The mountain did not yield easily. The work was loud, dangerous, and relentless. It took more than 3 years just to complete the boring. On May 11, 1922, the 2 tubes had been punched fully through Mount Washington from the south portal to the north face. Finishing work, lining the walls, laying the road surface, installing the lighting and infrastructure, consumed another year and a half. The Liberty Tunnels opened to traffic in January of 1924. The total cost was $6 million, a sum equivalent to well over $100 million in today's money. Pittsburgh had its shortcut, but it had opened that shortcut with a flaw that would prove nearly fatal within months. The tunnels had no ventilation system, none at all. Engineers and city officials had calculated, or perhaps hoped, that the natural movement of vehicles through the tubes would generate enough airflow to keep conditions breathable. It was a reasonable theory for a tunnel in constant motion, but it was a theory that assumed the traffic would keep moving. Then came May 10, 1924. A strike by the Pittsburgh Street Railway Company shut down the city's trolley network. Thousands of commuters who would have ridden the streetcar instead climbed into their automobiles. The Liberty tunnels filled with traffic, unlike anything they had seen in their brief months of operation. And then the traffic stopped. Vehicles backed up inside the tunnels, engines running, exhaust building in the enclosed stone chambers. The air turned thick and gray and poisonous. One by one, motorists inside the tunnels lost consciousness. They simply collapsed at the wheel, overcome by carbon monoxide and unburned fumes in a space with nowhere for the poison to go. It was a warning, written in human suffering. The natural draft theory had collapsed the moment the vehicle stopped moving. Authorities immediately imposed strict regulations on the number of vehicles permitted to enter the tunnels at any given time. Pittsburgh's Great Shortcut was now operating under a permanent daily rationing system. The tunnels that were supposed to relieve congestion were themselves creating a new kind of bottleneck as it born from the limits of their own design. Engineers sought help from the United States Bureau of Mines, an agency with deep expertise in the movement of air through confined underground spaces. Together, tunnel engineers and federal specialists designed a mechanical ventilation system that would address the problem directly and permanently. The solution was both bold and technically demanding. 4 vertical shafts, each 200 feet deep, were drilled straight down from the summit of Mount Washington into the tunnel bores below. The drilling of those shafts through hard rock was an engineering challenge in its own right. Precise, difficult work that had to align perfectly with the tunnels running beneath. A ventilation plant was then constructed on the mountain's summit to house the machinery that would move air. And from that plant, the ventilation towers extended an additional 110 feet into the sky above, standing like industrial sentinels on top of the ridge, visible against the Pittsburgh skyline, drawing fresh air in from above and forcing it down through the vertical shafts into the tunnels below. Construction of the full ventilation system was completed in 1928, 4 years after the tunnels had opened. That same year, on March 27th, the Liberty Bridge was finished and formally connected to the northern portal of the tunnels. The complete corridor was now open. Bridge, tunnel, mountain, all joined into a single uninterrupted route between downtown Pittsburgh and the South Hills. The ventilation restrictions were lifted. Traffic moved freely for the first time. The Liberty tunnels would go on to accumulate distinctions beyond their original purpose. In 1941, they became the first tunnel anywhere in the world to provide AM radio reception throughout their full length, a remarkable technological first that passed largely without ceremony. By August of 1987, cellular telephone reception had been extended inside as well. The 4-foot pedestrian sidewalks, rarely used in the automobile age, were removed during a renovation in the 1970s to widen the traffic lanes and increase clearance for larger vehicles. The tunnels adapted, as great infrastructure always must. They remain in daily service today. More than a century after construction began, the Liberty tunnels still carry Pittsburgh beneath Mount Washington, still link the South Hills to the city, still fulfill the vision of Amos D. Neeld and the workers who drove steel and blasted stone through a mountain that did not want to be opened. They are the longest automobile tunnels within the Pittsburgh city limits. They are a monument to industrial-age ambition, to the labor of thousands of unnamed workers, and to the hard truth learned on a spring afternoon in 1924, that even the most impressive engineering must honestly reckon with what happens when everything goes wrong. A tunnel through rock is a simple idea, but making that tunnel breathe, making it endure, making it matter across a century, that is something far more than simple. If you found this history worth knowing, subscribe for more stories of human ambition in steel, stone, and concrete.